As long as the stream does not crash, please don't. God damn it, Starlink stick, keep it together. God damn it. Okay, so, but anyway, but yeah, that's basically what I got going on right now. So, yep, viewership goes up and down. That's fine. It's okay. So, but yeah, I was hoping more people would be popping in here because I popped it all over. I dropped links on X, I dropped links on Facebook, I dropped links on Discord in multiple pages. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not interesting enough. I don't know. Okay, fine, fuck it, whatever. I'm still gonna keep doing content creation. For people say, oh, you shouldn't do content creation, kiss my ass. I'm gonna keep doing it. Why? Because I enjoy doing it. Okay, I don't even care if I don't get rich off of it. That's not my goal. You know, I would love to win the lottery someday. That'd be pretty awesome. That'd be pretty sweet, honestly. So. Because I know I'm never going to have like the same kind of charisma as some content creators. I get that. I've got the charisma of a fucking piece of celery. I get it. And yes, I can say that about myself. I can do the self-deprecating humor. It's just how I am. So, oh, Glenn Lawrence, there he is. Okay. And he's joining. All right. How you doing, Glenn? Can you hear me?
Check, check, check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry, I don't have my camera on. I'm
No
doing
worries.
a bunch of stuff on the computer right now, and it's like dragging ass.
It's all right. It's not required. So yeah. Before you actually get started, why don't you go and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Who I am Glenn Lawrence, veteran, former bodybuilder, former youth pastor, actor, producer, in the independent market in Hollywood, and I run a podcast
There you go. If you
where
want
I
to,
probably talk about things that you disagree with very much.
that's all right. You know, we don't all have to agree. I mean, it'd be a boring world if we all agreed, right? So
It'll be really boring.
very boring. So all
But
right,
you know, sometimes boring is good. Just saying.
it can be sometimes. It really kind of depends on the scenario, though. So,
As long as it's not sex, we're good, right? You know.
yeah, like because like when people say like if you have boring sex, then that's a problem. So,
I
so
mean, yeah, really
yeah,
bad.
really really bad. So all right, so go ahead and explain to me. So why are you voting for Donald Trump?
I think that Trump, if you remove COVID out of the equation, because like we go say like that was any president that would have been faced with COVID would probably have to make the same choices when it came to the deficit and all that stuff. But when you remove that out of the equation, he did everything that he said he was going to do. Um, Job market was doing great. We had the lowest unemployment rate. Um, we weren't in any wars, and I think overall the economy and the in our not only our allies but our enemies also respected us more. I mean, he demanded, you know, NATO to pay their fair share, which is good. Um, so I didn't really have a problem with his policies or anything that he implemented. I think he did a great job at putting Roe versus Wade back to the states. I think that was where it's always should have been. I Other than his rhetoric that he says, I don't really see a reason why he shouldn't, like why we wouldn't have trust in him. I know when they said that like, oh, Trump's tax plan or you know is going to you know, make the country go bankrupt. They said that last time too, and we had a 1 point, I think 7 or something like that inflation rate until like, you know, until after COVID. So I mean, there really wasn't really much anything that negative that I could say that he did policy wise. And I don't blame Jan 6 on him. I you know what I'm saying? Like I know a lot of people on the left try to do that. Um I after speaking with somebody who was in prison, a friend of mine who was in prison for Jan 6, um I have more understanding and insight of what really went down there than I did before. And So I really don't see any reason why he shouldn't be president.
All right. So when it comes down to January 6th, right? So Donald Trump for months was talking about like how the election was rigged, and he still hasn't conceded the fact that he lost the election. But if Donald Trump didn't say about how the election was stolen, talk about like how the election was rigged, if he didn't say any of those things, do you think January 6th probably would have happened?
So knowing what I know, um, I think it was inevitable. And I think people put way too much credit on Trump as the cause, as instead of other actors that were involved.
Like who? Like what actors involved? Do you think?
Um, how about a couple like three-letter agencies?
Okay. So like the three-letter
Um,
agencies you think were involved like in orchestrating
it,
January 6th?
well, no, not orchestrating it.
Mhm.
Possibly instigating it. There, there was like Antifa and Proud Boys there, or like groups like that were also in the midst of the crowd, and we all know that both sides of those are bad actors, right? So I think, like for my buddy who was there, he went inside to use the restroom. He through the door that was open, not the door that was broken in with the window, actual open door that people were going in and out of.
Mhm.
He went and used the bathroom, walked around a little bit, you know, walked out, and then he ends up doing 3 years in prison. Like, so hearing what he said in the videos that he showed me, I don't think, I can't say it was, Trump's, fault. I think people wanted to blame him, and they used him as an easy scapegoat because of his rhetoric.
Well, here's the reason why I'm going to disagree, because there are people that also spent time in prison. They said they went there because of Donald Trump. And the reason why I asked you, if Donald Trump didn't spread all these lies saying like how the election was stolen, because that was like the big hype up to January 6th. He said that Mike Pence was going to had the power to return to the states, which he did not. January 6th is simply just merely it's a ceremonial of just like certifying the electors essentially. But the reason why I asked that is because every single time that question gets asked, it's like, well, no, people don't really like answer it. But the reason I asked it is because if Donald Trump did not say anything, if he conceded that he lost the election, I don't think January 6th would have happened. None of this really would have been a controversy. But I feel like because he hyped it up, and for 3.5, almost 4 hours, he sat there and watched as people were entering the Capitol. His daughter and other members of his staff were coming in. It's like, Mr. President, you've got to stop this. And finally,
Okay.
when he finally said, "Okay, time to go home. We need to have peace," they dispersed. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
that's very significant.
Okay. So let's use your same logic here.
Mhm.
Okay. Then can we say that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are responsible for the three assassination attempts made on Donald Trump this election?
No, because they denounced it outright.
Um, no, they denounced it after the first assassination, but all their rhetoric prior to, he's gonna ruin the country. He's the enemy of the country. Blah blah. Like, our country's gonna be destroyed because of him. He's gonna make it a dictatorship. All the shit that they have said about him, he needs to be stopped. The MAGA are a bunch of terrorists. Like, all the shit that they said. You're saying that none of that rhetoric could contribute to these guys taking it upon themselves and become vigilantes.
Well, the thing is, we still haven't, because everyone tried to say that the shooters are tied to like Antifa or they're Democrats. They're not. They're registered Republicans. So we still don't know that like the motive behind the first shooter. The second shooter is a guy that did vote for Trump, but he says, I truly believe that you could have done better. But they all, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have specifically called Donald Trump and asked him, "Are you okay?" But the thing is, like by that same metric, when Paul Pelosi was attacked, Donald Trump didn't apologize. He actually doubled down and he even joked about that. That's kind of screwed up, don't you
I
think?
I I, I mean, that's what aboutisms what you're doing right now.
Well, that's what she just did with me as well. I mean, like we're talking about January 6th, and now you're talking about like the assassination attempts. That's also what about isn't it? You there? Oh, did Zoom freeze up? Hello?
And act. Oh, did you hear me? Am I
No,
here?
no, I didn't hear you. It froze up. Go ahead.
Okay. So you're telling me that you don't believe that any of the rhetoric that they said prior to the first assassination attempt could have factored in or contributed. There's a lot of reports that say like, oh yes, the guy was a registered, you know, um, Republican, but he gave to the Democratic Party when for campaigning. Like, sure, he was registered Republican, but it doesn't mean that he was a Republican. And there was reports that the first guy was LGBT, emphasis on the T. Um, so I mean, there's that. Then there's the second guy, uh, who was a known three-letter agency asset that came out, right? He was working with Ukraine, from what the news has been reporting. So, I mean, come on. Like, you're saying that the rhetoric that they said had nothing or could not have contributed whatsoever.
I'm simply saying
And
that.
if you're going to say that rhetoric is not their rhetoric prior to the first assassination is not motivating enough to cause someone to want to take it upon themselves to do the assassination attempt, then you also have to say Trump's rhetoric was also not inflammatory enough to cause someone to be motivated to do January 6th.
Well, and here's the reason why I'm saying it's not the same. Because, for example, like I said, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris denounced the attack outright. Donald Trump didn't, but Donald Trump did not denounce what happened on January 6th. As a matter of fact, he's even told his chief of staff, he's even told Kevin McCarthy that maybe these people care more about the election being stolen than you have. Donald Trump deliberately lied about the election being stolen. That led to January 6th. This is what led to like Capitol police officers being assaulted. And he's even on
How
record.
many? Okay, how many? And did you also know about all the tweets that he sent out that Twitter blocked? I mean, like they released that information too. Elon Musk did that when he took over.
But
So
go ahead.
like 20 minutes after, he when he got word that there was, something going on at the Capitol, he immediately, started tweeting. No, go home. Peaceful protests. He wasn't inflaming anything. As soon as he heard it, he was trying to, simmer it down. So with that being said, it's like it took us years until Elon got in there to know this information. And when they released it, they kind of swept it under the rug.
You talk about like the tweet saying like, "Hey, don't assault the police, the Capitol Police," stuff like that.
Yeah, and telling them to go home. Peaceful protest. If you're going to protest, do it peacefully. Like all that stuff. Like he wasn't inflaming anything. He was anything trying to calm it down.
When he was at the ellipses, I remember him also specifically saying, "Is like if you don't fight like hell, you're going to lose your country." Rudy Giuliani also came on and says, "We have to have a trial by combat." That's pretty inflammatory. That sounds like pretty serious stuff, honestly. Like that sounds like when people took that very seriously, and let alone the fact that there are records of people that had weapons and they actually had the metal detectors. And Donald Trump said, "Take away those metal detectors. They're not here for me. These are my people," essentially. I mean, there's records of people there being armed. And once again, people that were assaulting police officers. And he hasn't denounced the attacks on the police officers. He says, "Hey, don't harm our police officers." But there's records of Donald Trump doing consistent like pre-records of saying, "Hey, listen, the election was stolen. Like this was a fair election." He's like, "Listen, I'm not going to say that. Can I just say something else?" Essentially, like he went through like multiple takes because he refuses to denounce. He's even talking about releasing these very same people who assaulted our Capitol Police officers. I mean, I'm sorry, like that doesn't sound like a peaceful thing. If he's willing to release the very same people and pardon the same people that committed these horrendous crimes, I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it.
Again, if you're gonna say that, like, if Trump is the one that caused everybody to, you know, if you're gonna say that Trump is the one that caused all those people to act, then you have to be willing to consider that the rhetoric that the Democrats have been using could have also caused or motivated those shooters to act, those assassination attempts to happen.
The reason I'm going to say no to that is because so far we don't know the
'Cause
motivations behind them.
Well, wouldn't you say like it's easy to say no to that because it fits your worldview or it fits your argument? Like
Well-
I'm willing to I'm trying to give you like I'm trying to meet you in the middle here. If you're saying okay, Trump did it, or motivated for Jan 6, okay, I will give you that possibility. Like I was like, okay, sure, I can see that as a possibility. People could hear something, especially if they're inspired by an individual or they trust this individual. People could take what they say and act on it. Sure, no problem. I've seen it happen in other ways before. People can be manipulated by other people that way. No problem whatsoever. Now do I think all of them were? No, but maybe there could have been a few. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to concede that, but you're not even willing to concede that the rhetoric that has been spewed about this guy from the left could have caused anybody to decide to take it upon themselves and take matters in their own hands.
So the first guy,
and to me, that's just like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like you're not willing to even say that that's a possibility.
If there was evidence to come out for it, that's one thing. But so far, I haven't seen any. Like the one donation to Act Blue isn't sufficient evidence. The second guy, we still haven't heard like his entire motivations at this point. Now, I don't want to spend too much time because like I do want to get to some of your other points essentially because like I don't want to spend too much time if that's okay. But like the second guy, we still haven't learned all of his motivations. Now, the first guy, they're saying that like we heard about this guy for about a year. And yeah, maybe they should have cracked down upon him, which I am in full agreement upon. Excuse me. But as of right now, I can't say about like whether this rhetoric, because it's not the first time that somebody has been accusing like a president, because they said the same thing about Barack Obama being Hitler, essentially. They said the same thing about George Bush essentially being Hitler.
Who painted Obama as anything near Hitler? I don't think Obama was. I don't recall that.
I do, definitely do.
I mean,
yeah. Well, here's the reason why is because when Obama was, and again, I don't want to get like too much.
Because I voted for Obama during that time.
I never.
I voted for Obama the first time. I didn't vote for him the second time.
Yeah, I voted for Mitt Romney in 2012 myself. So, but
so we swapped.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, I was a registered independent for many years, and only in 2020 was the first time I voted Democrat. So. But anyway, I didn't want to get. But like when Obamacare came out, they were always talking about like how Obama is going to bring on death panels and stuff like that. They compared him to Hitler and stuff like that. It was completely ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. So, but like the reason why I can't really make the same comparison because many people like there are a bunch of idiots on the left that cheered the assassination attempt, and I denounce that 100%. Like Jake asked me this. Jake Var, who's in Project Veopod, he asked me, "Do I denounce this?" And I said 100%. I definitely do. Nobody should be taking attempts like this, no matter what. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, this is not the way to do it. I just would rather he gets beat in the polls than somebody take attempts on his life. And the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came out outright and said, "Listen, this is not okay. Don't make attempts on his life."
Well, Joe Biden didn't come out outright. It took him several hours before he even came out. And when he came out, he was, there was like a very lackluster, speech, and they asked him how's Trump doing, and they're like, well, I haven't heard from him yet. Like let's just come on. Like they were even just like, they want me to repeat some of the rhetoric that they were saying.
Oh, go ahead.
Trump is a threat to the Constitution. The Biden administration is here to defend the First Amendment. Trump is works with Russia, supports Russia. He is Hitler, right? Trump is going to make himself a dictator.
Well,
which is not true.
Well, he did say he wants to be a dictator on day one.
Well, I think everybody knows that you can't. Like, there's no. We have three forms of government there, or three groups of government that act as a checks and balance. So there would be no way that even if any president did, Obama said that he would do his third term in the basement on the phone, and he'll just have someone else be president. You don't remember that? He made that joke on
Ah,
it was
well,
one of the late night shows. So I
well,
mean,
kind of going into that, like I'm pretty sure Obama, like he says like witticism stuff like that, but Trump has doubled down on it multiple times. Like even Sean Hannity tried to say you don't actually mean that. It's like, oh yes I do, and like we're gonna like drill baby drill, and we're gonna like deport millions of people. But here's the reason why I have a problem with Trump saying like he's gonna be a dictator, because he actually said on True Social that a massive fraud of this type, talking about election fraud and magnitude, allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. That's troubling to me. I mean, why would anybody say to terminate the rules and regulations of the Constitution when there's no, because like voter fraud is statistically irrelevant. Like there is no other way to look at this, but he's still insisting that there's enough voter fraud that determined the outcome of the last election, which there wasn't.
well, you don't think time to put Trump in a bullseye is inflammatory rhetoric? What's a bullseye?
Yeah, and Joe Biden said that was wrong for him to say that. He shouldn't have said that.
And then he later on dismissed it, the large criticism telling Holt that it merely was a figure of speech, and saying Trump is one of the most mainstream violent, or has the one most mainstream violent rhetoric. He said, I didn't say crosshair, I meant bullseye.
Hmm.
I meant to focus on him.
And,
Focus on what he's doing. Come on. Like so even if he said like, oh yeah, I was wrong for saying that, but then he backs it, walks it back by saying, well, I didn't mean crosshairs. I meant like, bullseye, like to focus on him.
mm-hmm.
Like,
But and here's the thing, like, and you might consider this like a whataboutism essentially, but like when Joe Biden says like, "Hey, I shouldn't have said that," and he apologized for it essentially. Let's kind of look back like with Donald Trump and like some of the rhetoric that he's used to target specific citizens. Are you familiar with Ruby Shea and no, Ruby Moss and Shea Ruby Freeman and Shea Moss? Are you familiar with those two people?
name sounds familiar. I'm trying to remember why I know them.
They are the women that were in the poll workers down in Georgia. He actually specifically named them, saying that they were responsible for stealing the election, and he has doubled down on this. And they have had their lives threatened. They've had to relocate. Like they can't even like say their names in public. They took Rudy Giuliani to court because of the lies that he spread about them. These people have had their lives upended because of Donald Trump deliberately targeting them. I mean that, and Trump hasn't apologized whatsoever for stuff like that. And like it's amazing because like here's the thing that I've noticed.
Okay? Well, okay, hold on. Then what about like the dossier, right?
The
The Russian
dossier, yeah, the Steele dossier was horrible.
Come on.
Yeah, the Steele
okay,
dossier.
But like, did anybody like that would be considered what is it something of justice damn it basically like making a false statement for one. You know that this information is bullshit, but you're choosing to lead U.S. officials to believe that there's a crime here, like the FBI. You're wasting U.S. tax dollars on a bogus, case. And did anybody go to jail for that? Did Hillary have to pay for anything for that? Like Hillary literally did the same thing that Trump did when it came to the stripper thing. But she got a fine. Trump gets 40 some odd counts of, what was it? What was he charged for? 44 counts
like,
of
for like business stuff, like fraud. I'd have to look it up, but
something you
fraud.
misappropriating campaign funds or something like that.
Yep.
Right. She got a $1,500 fine or $15,000 fine, and he ends up, getting, charged. Come on, like. I'm just saying, like you can't look at it and say like, well, we could go tit for tat back and forth.
Sure.
We could, but we have to acknowledge at least that what the left has been doing to this guy is pretty fucked up. Like maybe his rhetoric is inflamed because of all the bullshit that everybody's gotten away with. During this whole time, when he was a Republican or Democrat, nobody had a problem with him. He wasn't considered a racist. He won how many NAACP awards?
Several. I don't know how many. Like, I know the Ellis Island has been like taken out of context. They say like he was with Rosa Parks and Muhammad Ali, but that was like had nothing to do with like him not being a racist or something like that. It was a completely different story essentially. But
Like Eminem handed him the NAACP award at like, I think it was like in 2006 or something like that. I'm just saying, like, this guy was not known as a racist. Jennifer Hudson, the singer whose family got murdered, I believe, up in Chicago, black chick. He flew her whole family out, on his private plane to Trump Towers and put her up in there. No cost to anybody. Nobody knows about this. I mean, there's so many like it's just ridiculous to say all the rhetoric that's been going on could not have contributed to any of these attempts or these guys that made these attempts at all. It just regardless that they Trump or Biden or Harris like denounce it afterwards. It's not what they say afterwards that caused the shootings. It's what they have said before that could have inflamed the shootings.
So okay, so here's what I'm curious about, right? When Trump says inflammatory things, when people expect him to denounce it, he's like not expected to. But when something happens with Democrats, why are they supposed to be the ones to expected to denounce everything? Because during COVID, Trump was saying inflammatory things like, Kung flu, China virus. And then guess what happened afterwards? Attacks on Asian Americans spiked during COVID because let's be honest, there are people in this country that don't know the difference between a Filipino, a Japanese person, a Chinese person, and whatnot. And they were getting attacked left and right because he said things like, Kung flu, China virus, and stuff like that. But why is it that like when something bad happens to like and here's the thing, like I said, I denounce what happened, like the attack, like the actual assassination attempt on Trump, right? I accept this. But like whenever like people like I said, once again, Paul Pelosi gets attacked, the conservative base can make a mockery of it and nobody's expected to like, denounce the attack. The conservative base made a mockery of it. But yet when something bad happens to a Republican, the Democrats have to denounce it like outright. It's kind of like people in the Muslim community have to denounce the October 7th attack, but when the response essentially is, oh, well, that's okay. We're not going to expect people to like denounce that respect. I mean, it's kind of like the same thing. It's just like, how are you going to expect one group to denounce something, but when something else happens on the other side,
can we be real though? Like Trump got shut down from like all platforms because of his rhetoric, right? People didn't like the left didn't like his rhetoric. Most of the people that own or operate like these social media platforms tend to lean more left, right? And they kicked them all off of him to the point where like he had to create his own app, Truth Social, right? Like so it's like he was silenced, he was punished. I mean, should he have said inflammatory rhetoric? No. Should he have apologized for it? Sure. But it doesn't matter. It's not like, well, why do I have to do it if you don't have to do it? It's the right thing to do, regardless. If you should do it, regardless who does it and who doesn't do it, you should still do it. That's the right and moral thing to do, right? Like, so if Trump doesn't do it, doesn't make them, the Harris or Biden, any less responsible to do it. If anything, how about you set yourself apart from him and lead by example and do it and not do that rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, so the thing is like, I don't look at Trump as someone that leads by example. That's the problem. Because like, when I hear people say things like, and like, hey, Jake, listen, if you want to bop it in the chat, and Glenn, I'm not trying to cut you off now, but it's just like,
no, it's fine. I know if Jake Var's here, he's gonna have fun with you.
I know him and I argue all the time, but that's okay. It's all in good faith. But anyways, like, but here's the thing. It's just like, again, it kind of goes back to my point. It's like, why is it though that like, when I look at people like Trump, I don't look at him as like a person that leads by example. He looks like a guy that demands that you be loyal to him. Like towards the end of his administration, I said this earlier, towards the end of his administration, he actually had John McEntee going throughout the White House, telling people to sign loyalty pledges. I'm sorry, that's a problem. Like,
do you know why?
Why is that?
Because he found out that Pence's office has been the one that was leaking all the information out. Like there was a mole in either through Pence or Pence's, staff who was responsible for the leaks. And so, yeah, I would want to know who's going to be loyal or not. Like, Are you loyal to the office of the president, who you work for, or are you trying to, sabotage the good that we're trying to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you trying to sabotage our mission, or are you working towards our mission?
Mhm.
Like, and when you find that there's a mole towards the end, I think it was like the last 6 months or last
Mhm.
year. I want to say it's about the last 6 months because I think
Mhm.
it was probably prior to the count. Um, this information gets brought up to him. Yeah, I'm gonna be skeptical of everybody that works with me too.
And here's my problem with it. Okay, so Jake is still at work, so sorry, Jake, but I'll have to just catch you at another time because I'm gonna be wrapping this thing up here in about 10 or 15 minutes. So, but here's the thing. I'm the firm believer. Like, here's the thing. I was a leader in the army. I failed many times, but the one thing I never did is I never expected people to sign a loyalty pledge to me. Even if like people like might have been trashing me, like I don't expect that of my, because like when you're a leader, right? You
Yeah, you
want
didn't
your
expect it because they weren't giving you any reason to believe that they would. When I was in the Air Force, I was a flight leader. I
Mhm.
understood that.
Mhm.
So it's like I understood that the sergeant that people were gonna. I expect them to follow my orders,
Mhm.
when given.
Mhm.
And for those that didn't, maybe they had behavior problems or whatever reason.
Mhm.
I would be a little bit more observant of them,
Mhm. Yeah,
monitoring them a little bit more.
yeah. Well,
But like when you don't have a reason, when nobody has given you a reason,
mhm.
you're not going to make them sign a pledge or make that kind of vow.
Yep.
But you have to wait till you get a reason.
Yep. But that's my whole entire problem though, is because like if you have to demand loyalty of your people, I don't think you earned it, honestly. Like that's the thing. It's like if you have to tell people you're in charge, it's kind of like when Bane says, "Do you feel in charge?" Because I look at Trump as a very insecure person. He has to justify everything that he does because it's his insecurity levels that are
It's
just like
but it's not
skyrocketing.
the man that they have to respect. It's the office that he
Mhm.
operates in.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's like you don't have to like me,
Mhm.
but you have to respect the position that I hold. And that was the problem, and I think that's what led to it. But so let me ask you this, because
Mhm.
why Harris? What has she done in her career
Mhm.
that has that makes anyone assume that the country would be better under her than Trump?
Okay, well, that's a fair question. So she actually has proven that she can win elections. She has won for district attorney. She won as AG, and she also won as a senator. And she did it a full term as a senator. And now that she's like, and I understand people say, well, she didn't do very well in the polling in 2019, 2020. Well, neither did Biden, but then he became president. But the reason why I say that is because she's actually been able to lay out policies and she's working with people like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban has done great work when it comes down to combating pharmacy benefit managers, which is a really big topic on like how they can be more transparent when it comes down to like prescription medications. She's talked about like how she's addressed issues, for example, like child tax credit, because everybody knows that children can be expensive, especially like if you can't afford to have both parents, like one person staying at home, you have to have both parents working. Childcare is very expensive, and it's like for some people, it's like $2,000 a month. This $6,000 a month, it might be for the first couple of years, but that can offset a huge cost. She's also got that executive experience where she says, "I'm willing to surround myself with people that disagree with me." That is healthy. Surrounding yourself with just people that will just be yes sir, no sir kind of deal is not healthy. Like you have to have guardrails in place in the event that like that's the thing is that like and I'm not trying to bring up Trump again, but it's like that's the reason why like when people say, "Oh, why did he do it in his first term?" It's because he had those guardrails. He had people like Milley tell him, "No, you can't do that." He had people like Bill Barr saying, "No, you can't do that." You have to be able to tell people that will keep you in line so you don't make those mistakes. And I respect the fact that she's willing to do so. Is she going to be perfect? No, but guess she's got Tim Walz, who has a career. He has a great record as the Minnesota governor. All right, of signing overall positive legislation, whether it's free school lunches and breakfast for children. He also actually signed legislation to make it to where workers get good health care, essentially. 12 weeks maternity leave, 12 weeks of sick leave. These are all overwhelmingly positive. Like these are decisions that people like, whether it's conservative or progressive. And I know she's going to surround herself with people that are going to be qualified. Now, there's no guarantee the people that are working in this administration are going to get a job. I'm okay with that. But that's the reason why I can definitely be on board with Kamala Harris. Far more over Donald Trump.
Okay, so
yeah.
so when she was a DA,
Mm-hmm.
right? She would lock up a bunch of people,
Mm-hmm.
minorities at that, right? For weed and stuff, and then make jokes about it
Mm-hmm.
after the fact, right? You know, like, oh, what about the truancy law that she tried to do? She was trying to get parents, she was locking up parents if their kid was truant.
Mm-hmm.
And then what does that do? That puts the kid in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Not really good for families, not very smart choices there.
Mm-hmm.
How did she do at the border? She was the border czar. Did she do any good at the border? No. I mean, how many migrants, illegal migrants have come in? How many like what thing was like 15,000 criminals and like 5,000 or 10,000 like SA offenders
Mm-hmm.
that came in that we ended up having to catch later on. Like, I mean, did a horrible job at the border.
Mm-hmm.
Her budget or her tax plan tends to just increase the national debt. I think it's a whole 4.5 trillion, close to $5 trillion. Her plan is also to tax the wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And which I get. You may want to. Everybody on the left wants to tax the wealthy. Well, the wealthy are the ones that tend to create jobs. They're the ones that tend to start new businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Taxing them even higher when the bottom, I think it's like the bottom 50% of all Americans pay like 3.2 or 3.7% of all taxes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the top 50% pay like 97% of it, right? And then the top, I think it's like 40 or 25% pay like 47% of the taxes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, tax them because we don't need more jobs. Oh, and then the unrealized gain tax, 25% unrealized gain. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, that doesn't help. That doesn't help Americans. That actually slows down the growth. And her plan also is like projected to increase our inflation even higher than it is now. So all those great plans that, the $6,000 for the child credit, well, we're still going to have to pay for it. It's just going to be thrown on our taxes. Like, it's not free money. It's going to be the $20,000 or $25,000 that she's giving for homeowners or people that want to buy a home, whatever. That's going to be thrown on the backs of the working class. They're going to have to pay that. Okay, like, so it's like that doesn't help. Like, yeah, they're great cuts, but if you're not finding other means like tariffs to bring in more revenue,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then all you're doing is increasing the debt and throwing that on the backs of hardworking Americans that are already struggling as it is
Mm-hmm.
to make ends meet. That's not solving a problem. That's creating more of the problem.
All right, so I'm gonna try to remember everything you said, but it's just like I'm trying to like remember everything. But okay, so
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
If I said a little too much at once, I get it.
It's all right. It's okay. You're the only person that's come on here tonight, so I'm not gonna get too flustered about it. So first things first, when it comes down to the people like smoking weed bit, I know she like joked about stuff like that, but the person that actually was responsible for all these crimes was actually held liable for that. Her office was just following the law at the time, which like possession of marijuana was illegal back in those days, and they were just following the law essentially. And she's basically made that abundantly clear that nobody should have to go to jail. So I'm pretty sure her position has changed regarding that. As far as the truancy, I need to do more research on the truancy, but she insists that this was like a law that she had like no real control over. It was something that was like passed. Even though she sponsored the law for the arrest, her office provided guidance to local district attorneys and what prosecutions should and should not be made. So she kind of left it to like, we talked about earlier, like leaving to the states. So I guess some districts made calls that were not necessarily hers. So as far as like tariffs, Donald Trump doesn't understand what tariffs actually do. Now, there are some targeted tariffs that the Biden and Harris administration kept, but the thing is, when Donald Trump brought in tariffs, it actually hurt American farmers. There was actually a $36 billion bailout because of how much it hurt American farmers. And now he's talking about doing like a 60, 70, 80% tariff on all goods. That's not going to help the American, it's going to hurt the American consumer significantly. And we want to talk about like,
Well, real quick, right there, you said the farmers. Do you think the tariffs are the problem, or was it the fact that we have sold farmland to China, lots of farmland to China? What was the problem?
Well, that's happened under multiple administrations, even under Donald Trump, though. But when I'm looking up in this article by the Trade Wars by Foreign Policy, they actually indicated that that farmers were livid when Trump made those tariffs. Like they held him specifically responsible, and Trump had to like, oh shit, I'm sorry, I forgot, I got to take that one back. But I just got to keep going real quick. So shit, I lost my train of thought. God damn it, my damn auditory processing. But anyway, but Trump's policies, like economic experts, whether it like even economic experts, there was like a panel or like a question he was actually asked. A guy that actually specialized in economics talk about how your tariff policy would actually hurt the American economy. And Trump's only answer was, you're wrong. You've never been more wrong in your life. And he folded back his arms like a child throwing a tantrum, essentially. And when it comes down to his economic policies are talking about increasing, because during his administration, he actually increased our national debt by 7.9 trillion. Now, some of that was for COVID. I can see that. But his tax cuts to the wealthy, to the billionaires, his tax cuts could offset to people like me. My taxes increased under Trump. I am living under the Trump tax cuts right now. That's not helping the American people whatsoever. Now, people say, well, wait a second, who's going to pay for all these plans that Kamala Harris is? Yeah, I get it. The taxpayer will. But what people need to realize is that the economic plans that Trump has, that's still going to get offset. These tariffs, we're going to pay more for goods under the Donald Trump plan for tariffs. We're also going to pay more for his plan to cut more taxes. The tax cuts have already helped it's been proven that the tax cuts helped the super wealthy more than help the average American citizen. And if I missed anything, I'm sorry, but it's just like you gotta just
no. I got you. No, well, I would
let's give it 10 more minutes if that's okay. 10 more minutes.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I'm gonna send you a video of this accountant and tax professional breaking down both Trump and Harris's tax plan. And he weighs in from a nonpartisan position. He's like, I believe he's an independent. I'm gonna throw it in the chat here on Zoom. Okay. And you just take a look at that when you can. I know you don't want to go too much longer, so I don't plan on you playing the video. But he breaks it down and he tells you the major reasons why their tax, like comparing the two tax plans, the pros and cons. Now, the only thing that I can say that it's part of Harris's tax plan that I agree with would be the tips. Not taxing the tips, right? But where did she get that from? She got that from Trump, right? She took that, she added that to her thing after Trump did. And I think you and I, since we're both content creators, could agree that that'll be really good because that means all of our donos, our donations or super chats would not be taxed. We wouldn't have to pay taxes on those. Now YouTube will still get their percentage, but we wouldn't have to be taxed on top of that. So I'm all for that. That's probably the only thing that I can say that she's doing that I agree with. But it doesn't. What does the adding? Because she's trying to put all this money aside to also create more apartments and homes. You could you could put all that money out there, but if inflation and the interest rate is so high, who cares if you have new homes out there to market? The interest rate's going to be ridiculous because of the inflation, and people are not going to be able to afford the home.
I think that's like the concept of like people that are unnecessarily price gouging, because you've heard that concept of price gouging, right? Where people,
they're trying to like her idea is if we have more houses and more things available, that will drive the cost of the houses down, right? So they'll be able to compete more.
So it's also like when it comes down to the price gouging bit, is this like, because there are some people, like some companies and whatnot, they like to increase, like for example, in the light of a pandemic, right, or like in the middle of a crisis. Say for example, a war breaks out with another oil supplier, and now they have to prioritize oil for their country, which means the price of oil is going to skyrocket. That's a different scenario. But we're talking about people that are unnecessarily price gouging. The same could be also said for like companies that build the homes and whatnot, that they're going to unnecessarily price gouge to the point to where, like, yes, it's going to increase the overall price and the income area for that specific area. But if it's unnecessarily price gouging, that's what we're trying to avoid essentially. Because if you live in a low income area, or an income area, the median household income is like 45,000 people, then yes, obviously the house you buy is going to be a lot cheaper. Why? Because of the area you live in. Now, if you move to a suburban area where the average household income is like, 80,000, 90,000, $100,000, obviously that house is going to be a lot more expensive. I think what they're trying to do is because there are certain areas across the country where the housing is cheaper, but it's a very bad low income area. It's like like crime is through the roof and stuff like that. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to give an
Well, then,
incentive.
then how about they just like increase police and better policing
Yeah,
and actually enforce laws that actually put that are better deterrents than for these criminals to not behave that way. And then you could clean up the neighborhood.
it's that's it seems very simplistic like that, but like low income areas are the most heavily policed areas in the country, and still there's crime in that area. I think if you want to fix those areas, it's gonna take.
Man, have you been downtown LA?
Oh
Have you
yeah,
been downtown LA
oh yeah.
anytime soon?
No, well
The,
not.
the most least placed policed areas
Oh yeah.
is in LA. All
Well,
right, downtown.
well, I've been in Compton. Like I made a delivery in Compton. Let me tell you that those streets are narrow as shit. I don't fucking like I did it as a truck driver too. So let's just say
I was just there the other day when Andrew Wilson and Destiny.
okay. Well, I haven't been there in about 3 years because I was doing it as a truck driver, and let me tell you, like I don't like driving. It's not because like the area itself is just like how narrow the streets are. Like that's a pain in the ass. But anyway, like what I'm trying to get into is this like some of the most heavily policed areas are, and I think it's because like area wise, it's a different story. But like what I'm talking about though is this like there are certain areas that are heavily policed, but police are a deterrent, right? But you have to look at the underlying issues. Why are these areas so crime ridden? Why? Because economic opportunity is not there. Like if you take a comparison, right? If you take a comparison of a low income area and a high income area, what are some things that you might notice? You'll notice like in a high income area, they got nicer schools, they got nicer hospitals, they got nicer community centers, they got gyms, they got nicer restaurant areas. But when you go to low income areas, what do you see? You see a lot of like the hospitals are not good quality, the grocery stores aren't good quality. A lot of that is all tied together. This is why like infrastructure is one of my biggest topics. The infrastructure is not as well improved in those areas. Now, it's a start, but this is not like a 5-year process that you can fix. It's like a 10, 20, 30-year process that's going to take for everything to kind of come to fruition, essentially. That's like my point, but it's got to start somewhere. And so far, and I will definitely say this, the infrastructure bill that has been put together is the most extensive we had since Eisenhower. It's a start in the right direction, but we've got a long way to go if we want to make things better. If you want to make things better for every citizen, if you want to reduce crime, you have to find their underlying issues. Why is crime being committed? And if you change the culture in some areas, you'll actually change the outcome. And that's just my.
I think we all know why crime is committed, because people will do bad things if they think that it's going to be in their best interest, or if they're going to be able to capitalize on it. I mean, simple as that. So if you don't have a strong enough deterrent to encourage people not to do bad things, well, then you're going to get people taking the risk of doing bad things. Like, for example, why do women have no problem accusing men falsely of SA or other horrible crimes, especially when it comes to family court? Because there's absolutely no consequence that's significant enough that is a deterrent to make them think twice about doing it. So if you increase the consequence, if you make the consequence so harsh to where they're like, shit, I don't want to be busted for that. Hell no. Then they're going to most likely be less likely to commit those infractions.
So two things to kind of counter that. Like I want to counter the first point you talked about. Like if you increase the deterrent, or is like where people just like they're going to capitalize on it. I actually knew a guy who was from the streets of New York. Like he was born and raised, and he lived on the streets of New York. And he explained that he did bad things, like he did like B&Es and stuff like that. But it's simply because he was homeless, and that was like his only means of surviving. I'm not saying it's okay, and even he knows it's okay, but he realized he needed to turn his life around. That's why he joined the military. Now, not everyone's going to do that, but I'm simply saying, so like, if you actually have a social safety net to where people actually have the opportunities to better their lives, then yes, that's a way to do it. But that's like not a process that can be fixed overnight. It's going to take time.
Okay, can we both acknowledge that like that wasn't his only option that he had?
It's
like
easy.
he obviously it was the easiest option that he had, and it was the quickest option that he had, right? It wasn't the only option. So like I think we need to stop giving criminals the excuse of, oh, they had no other choice. No, they always have a choice. They just choose the choice that they desire most, what they find is most convenient, or for them. um and I because it's almost like, oh well, I murdered this dude because, you know what, it was my only choice. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, yeah, but I'm just talking about like small crimes, like just breaking into somebody's home. And again, I'm not condoning what he did, but I get it. That's my.
do you know out here in California, I could walk into Best Buy and I could take like up to $1,000 worth of merchandise and walk right out without even getting arrested, without getting a ticket, a citation, or anything, as long as I'm under $1,000.
I've heard about
What's the
that,
deterrent?
I've looked. I haven't looked into that enough, but that's something I'd have to look into a little bit more. So I'm not gonna.
Like, even 50 Cent, said he wouldn't open up any businesses out here in California because of that law.
Well, I have my own reservations about California simply because I don't like driving in California. But like my second point, I didn't want to get off track too much. But like the second point,
sorry,
it's okay. It happens. I'm kind of scatterbrained sometimes. But anyway, like when it comes down to like when women falsely accuse men of SA, yes, I think it's absolutely atrociously bad. But there are women out there, like for example, the case of Brock Turner. The guy actually was caught what he did, and he got a slap on the wrist essentially, and that actually causes less women to want to report crimes. Now, again, I'm not saying that like women that report SA that didn't happen to them is okay. It's not. They should be because there are plenty of men out there that have been falsely accused of SA, and they spend time in prison. There definitely needs to be a penalty, but there also needs to be a harsher penalty for people that actually commit these acts.
I agree.
Yeah,
I say if those that commit them, we should just take them outside and publicly execute them. You know, I don't think anybody that does those type of acts are redeemable. I don't think that they could be reformed. There's no process in prison. I was a corrections officer. There's no process in prison that will rehabilitate them to not behave that way if they're already that way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I also think that the women that accuse men falsely should face the same consequence that they do. So if we're gonna stone the graper, I want to stone the false accuser, because they were putting that man's life on the line.
Yeah,
and to say like, well, there's guys that get away with it. Yes, there is. There are horrible monsters that get off on it. But it's nowhere near as significant as how many women get off. And 40 or 37% of all false allegations happen in family court. God forbid that you and your wife have a hard time and you get divorced and you're in a custody battle, because the odds are against you in that case, when it comes to false allegations. I'm just reporting the facts here. And I can even give you the book. You can get this book called The Justice War Against Men, by Dr. Eric Nelson. He breaks it down how family law and all that stuff gets mixed in with false allegations. But what I'm getting at is that why do 37% of women that actually make this allegation in family court do it, even though they know that it's wrong and it's lying? Because they know that there's no consequence significant enough to deter them. Now, prison is a deterrent, and we know that when you guys get charged for those crimes and you go to prison, the likelihood of you making it out of there, it's rare. Um, I mean, I tell you right now, as a corrections officer, there's been multiple times where we got a alert and had to respond to a fight where it was somebody that was listed for a pedo or SA crime.
Mhm.
Um, has his brains all over the floor or his
Mhm.
jaw hanging from his face, and he needs to go to the hospital, get wired shut. So those guys don't last very long in there.
Mhm.
They justice
I've heard a lot of
finds
stories
them.
like that. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories like that. Yeah, so
So what I'm getting at is like when we don't have a deterrent significant enough, like even our borders, we don't have a reason why people would not want to cross our borders and break the law and infringe on our sovereignty, our sovereign land. Like if somebody walked in through your door, I guarantee you would probably put two to the head, one in the chest, and you'd be real quick with it and not even think twice. Even if they were hungry, you wouldn't care. Why do we do that? Why don't we have the same policy? Why don't we have the same mentality? And as a nation, why do we have all these illegal migrants that are here on the tax dollars, using our tax dollars? That money could be going to veterans. That money could be going to hospitals. That money could be going to a lot of things. But under the Biden administration, that money has been going to housing them.
so before we close up, because I just got to respond to that real quick, and this will have to be like the last thing we talk about. Like when it comes down to the migrants, a lot of people that come across come through like main ports of entry. Now there are those that actually do get detained essentially, but like the thing is like migrants that come here, they actually contribute more like into our economy. It's actually been proven that they contribute into our economy. Now this whole concept, like I've heard the argument, like I need to look more into it. I got a friend that works in Border Patrol and he tells me the same kind of stuff all the time. But like when I look at the statistics, when people say, oh, open border, even the Border Patrol says there is no open border. That's just like it's a buzzword that people latch onto.
It's not obviously it's not open border,
Yeah.
but it's more of a citation and release border. It's not a
Mhm.
detain and send back border.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like we
like
don't.
stay in Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So.
not like the stay in Mexico plan that they had
Mhm.
before. So they still get busted. They'll still get like
Mhm.
caught, and they'll get their information taken down. And if they're if we have any information on them that they are
Mhm.
a violent offender, we do end up, detaining them and
Mhm.
sending them back
Yep.
eventually. But everyone else, no. Um, like, and I'll let you finish because I don't want to take. I don't want
Yeah,
you to lose.
it's okay. I mean, like at the end of the day, like there's a lot of things. Like yes, the border is an issue, but I think it's just because we have our immigration system is completely outdated. It needs to be enhanced. It needs to be fixed. But that's going to take some time. It's going to take some serious bipartisan effort. But we're not going to fix the problem by like consistently, because like the border bill that got put through it. The fact that Trump said no, 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 don't vote on it should be enough answer enough as is. But I honestly like Glenn, I do got to get off here shortly. But I think
Yeah, no problem.
yeah, I think
One,
we can have like another conversation sometime later on the line. Just feel free to hit me up sometime, and we can talk more about stuff like this because I really do want things to get better in this country, but it's just like having been in some of these areas that we're talking about. Like I understand what. Okay, I don't understand, but I see and I talk to those that like actually live the experiences. So like I feel like we could do better as a country, but it's just it's not something that's gonna get fixed like in one administration. It's gonna take years to fix essentially. So
oh yeah,
yeah.
and I think getting us out of the wars. I don't think we should be funding Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
We $6 billion we have
Mm-hmm.
given them so far. You know what we could have done with $6 billion? We could have definitely helped our vets. We could have definitely, cleaned up our streets.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, we could have even done those houses for the homeless that
Mm-hmm.
Newsom wants to do out here.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we're
Yep.
sending our aid, our money, our men and women now, our armed forces, to help other people in their wars. We need to stop doing that. We need
Yep.
to protect our own land.
Yeah, well, foreign aid is another topic that I'm gonna actually be covering sometime next week. So it's very extensive about it. So, but anyway, Glenn, I do appreciate you coming on. I felt this was a good conversation.
It
And
was a good
yeah,
conversation.
it's healthy to have conversations like this. So, but anyway, before you go, just go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you and what kind of stuff you talk about. Once again, before you go.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Alex, to have this conversation with you.
Mhm.
Um, You can find me at Glenn Lawrence _ presents, the production of men. What do I talk about? I talk about a lot of different topics, you know, anything from religion to relationships to the culture war, the cultural issues that we have going on here. I'm trying to bring common sense back to a world that seems to live in delusion. Um, I know it's kind of hard, but you know, if we're able to help one man at a time, my main goal is really to help men be proud to be men and to be better men for themselves and for those that they love. So if you're a better man first for yourself, then you definitely be a better man for your family and your loved ones. So that's the goal and the mission over at my channel. We do a lot of comedy. Best way to teach people some of the hardest topics is through comedy. So um, I use my skill set from my industry that I work in to help bring these messages across. So come on over, check it out. We do some really long live streams. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to go over to Glenn's channel. It's on YouTube and what else?
X, I'm on X.
Okay.
I'm on all the major
Okay.
social medias.
Yeah, so show him some love. Go over and give him a like and a share and subscribe and whatnot, and just show this guy some love. So, Glenn, once again, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad we had a good, rational discussion. Like, this is the kinds of conversations I like to have. You know, even if we disagree, that's fine. You know, disagreement is okay. You know, that's healthy. So, but
yeah, I'm not a debater. I like to have dialogue, like real conversations, be able to understand where the person comes from.
Sure.
You know, I'm not trying to get like gotcha moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to be the same. I'm a horrible debater. Anybody can tell you, like, you know, even Andrew will tell you I'm a terrible debater, but you know, it is what it is. Like I need to work on that, but you know, it is what it is. So, but
well, thank you, Alex. I'm gonna let you go, man.
All right, man. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir.
You as well.
Take care.
Bye.
Now. Bye.